For many fans of the Scream series, one of the most shocking twists ever came in Scream 4 when Jill Roberts was revealed as one of the Ghostface killers. Played by Emma Roberts, Jill wasn't just another masked murderer. She was the cousin of Sidney Prescott, the franchise's iconic survivor. Her shocking betrayal and disturbing plan to become the new final girl instantly made her one of the most memorable villains in the entire franchise. Because of that legacy, many fans expected Jill to somehow return in Scream 7. The movie heavily leans into the history of the franchise, revisiting old characters, past murders, and the long legacy of Ghostface. With so many callbacks to earlier films, it seemed almost inevitable that Jill Roberts would make some kind of appearance. But surprisingly, she didn't. Despite being one of the most infamous Ghostface killers and having a direct family connection to Sidney Prescott, Jill Roberts is completely absent from Scream 7. For longtime fans, this raised an obvious question: why wasn't she brought back? The answer, according to the film's writers, is actually very simple. Jill Roberts is definitively dead. In an interview, Scream franchise writer Guy Busick addressed the speculation about Jill's possible return. When asked whether the character might secretly still be alive, Busick explained that the ending of Scream 4 was always meant to be final. In his words, Jill's fate was completely sealed when Sidney shot her in the head during the climax of the film. In the world of horror movies, death is rarely permanent. Many slasher villains have returned after seemingly impossible injuries. Characters like Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees have survived situations that should have killed them multiple times. Even within the Scream franchise, there have been theories for years that certain characters could secretly still be alive. One of the biggest examples is Stu Macher, played by Matthew Lillard in the original Scream. Despite apparently dying in the first movie, fans have speculated for decades that Stu might have survived and could return in a future sequel. Those theories have kept the character relevant for years. But Jill's situation is very different. In Scream 4, Jill's entire plan revolves around recreating the original Woodsboro murders so she can become famous as the sole survivor. She manipulates her friends, orchestrates multiple killings, and even turns on her accomplice Charlie Walker. After betraying Charlie and attacking Sidney, Jill tries to stage the crime scene so that she appears to be the heroic survivor of the massacre. However, her plan ultimately fails when Sidney survives the attack. In the film's final confrontation at the hospital, Sidney fights back against Jill in a brutal struggle. The battle ends when Sidney uses a defibrillator to shock Jill and then shoots her, making sure the threat is completely eliminated. Because of that moment, the filmmakers always considered Jill's death to be permanent. Still, her absence in Scream 7 is particularly noticeable because the new movie focuses heavily on Sidney Prescott's past. In fact, the story once again centers on Sidney as she faces a new wave of Ghostface killers targeting her family. This time, the attacks are aimed at Sidney's teenage daughter, creating a new generational conflict that forces Sidney to confront the trauma of her past once again. The film also introduces modern elements to the franchise's traditional formula. One of the most interesting additions is the use of artificial intelligence technology, with Ghostface killers using AI-generated deepfake videos to psychologically torment Sidney and her family. This combination of classic slasher elements and modern technology reflects the franchise's long-standing tradition of commenting on contemporary horror trends. Even without Jill Roberts appearing in the film, Scream 7 still explores the legacy of past killers. The story constantly references previous Ghostface murders, reminding viewers that every attack in the series is connected to the long history of violence surrounding Sidney Prescott. However, the movie's reception has been mixed. Some fans appreciated the film's focus on Sidney and its attempt to honor the franchise's legacy. Others criticized the story for relying too heavily on nostalgia and repeating familiar ideas from earlier installments. In particular, many viewers felt that bringing back legacy characters without including Jill Roberts was a missed opportunity. After all, Jill wasn't just another Ghostface killer. She represented a darker evolution of the franchise's themes, the idea that someone would commit murder purely to gain fame and media attention. In many ways, Jill Roberts was ahead of her time. Her motivations reflected the growing influence of social media and the disturbing idea that notoriety could be a powerful motivation for violence. That's one reason why the character remains so popular among fans even years after Scream 4 was released. But despite that popularity, the creators of Scream appear committed to keeping her death permanent. And in a franchise where killers constantly return in unexpected ways, that decision actually makes Jill's story even more impactful. Her shocking reveal, her disturbing plan, and her brutal defeat remain some of the most memorable moments in the entire Scream series. So while Jill Roberts may not appear in Scream 7, her influence on the franchise is still impossible to ignore. Because in the world of Scream, even when the killers are gone, the legacy of Ghostface never truly disappears.